No cute little intro today. No philosophical reading today. No fancy lines. Just a raw note, a plea, from one human to another human, that we stop the negativity that exists within the community that I'm speaking to, that is martial arts, or otherwise. Be kind to each other. I don't want to say rest in peace to the person that this message is for. I don't want to say the name, but I do want to say that we can all be kind. And if we think about our worst thing that we have ever done, or we think about the worst thing that has ever happened to us, when we go to interact with other people, maybe we're a little bit more gentle, and maybe that gentle is what that person needs. Today, I sit down and have a conversation with Bryan, and it is a great conversation, and he proves an excellent point. If you are studying martial arts for the martial applications, this is an excellent conversation. It puts things into the perspective that we need to be serious about the things that we are fighting. We need to be serious about the things that we are fighting. Sometimes that is a person or persons that is in front or surrounding us that is trying to take our life. Sometimes it's demons within us that causes us to lose our own. Stay strong, everyone. If it sucks for you, I understand. Reach out. Please. And keep kicking.
Keep kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. All Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking, keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
All right, everyone. Welcome once again to Keep Kicking, martial arts podcast where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. Today, I sit down with Bryan. Do you want to introduce yourself at all, or are we just going to go?
We can just go. I mean, the people that out there know me, I'm sort of kind of a niche guy. You know, I'm mostly weapons oriented, so a lot of the more sport martial arts guys don't particularly follow me or even have interest in what I do, and that's perfectly fine.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, tell us about how you got started in martial arts.
Long journey, man. Started when I was a very small child. I was one of those hyperactive kids during the 70s. And my grandparents just said, you know what, let's put him in martial arts class, teach him some discipline and all the hook, line, and sinker stuff. So I was living in Virginia at the time, Norfolk specifically. We joined my grandparents put me in a Chuck Norris school. Started learning way back then, but it started a lifetime pursuit. And then every time my family would move or something would happen, I'd change another school. I got exposed to a ton of different styles, drifted into historical European martial arts eventually. And that actually led me to the Filipino martial arts because I was looking for living traditions that might shed some light on these, dusty old manuscripts. And that's where I sort of found my addiction, and I guess the lifelong pursuit of that I will be doing for the rest of my life is Filipino martial arts. But as of late, say the last 5-10 years, I've been looking at the more practical side of things. What people need to actually defend themselves and protect themselves, not a lifetime's worth of study.
Right. That's in that one little bit that you just gave me. There's a lot of questions. First, how did you get to European martial arts?
A roommate I had in the Army.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a funny story. I was a broke private with no money. It was the weekend, so I wasn't going to go out and do dumb private stuff. And the girl I was seeing at the time had just transferred off to another post, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I had this crazy ass roommate, and he was involved in historical European martial arts. And he was dragging his gear out from under his bed. And I was like, what in the world is this? And he's like, no, I'm going to a practice, man. You want to come? And I'm like, why not? And I was expecting, just some BS, LARPing, role play kind of stuff. And then with a couple of moments, these guys were hitting the living daylights out of each other. And I was like, oh, this is not, a bunch of non-athletic people not doing something. This is real. And
right.
I was like, oh, yeah, sign me up. And here I am.
I like that. So how'd you get to Filipino martial arts from there?
Trying to find any living traditions that were still connected to the older European methods of swordplay. And if you follow things down that rabbit hole, eventually you get to the Spanish-Filipino connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you dig deeper, and that's what, I got to say this, that is what led me to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the more and more I started looking at a comparison, and then started pulling in all the other things I had studied throughout the years, it really kind of hit me that everybody's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The effective things will show up in every martial art.
Sure.
If you look at a martial art and you see something that is way beyond the pale, chances are it's a bunch of BS. And I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. But
Sure.
I have this kind of personal theory about martial arts. And there's only one martial art. It's the way humans fight. There's only one. All the various styles and systems are simply the influences of climate, culture, and technology. In the Philippines, you're generally not wearing big, bulky suits of armor.
Yeah.
So the techniques are going to adjust for that. Whereas in Europe, you're wearing a big, bulky suit of armor.
Mm-hmm.
So the techniques are going to adjust for that. And you can just expand this. I mean, what is a bullet but a spear? When you really get down to it, what is a bullet but a spear? It's one thing traveling in one direction with a point that puts a hole in its target.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, upon that realization, I started really looking much deeper into how all these arts are connected, and not connected through this guy taught this guy this historical thing, that historical thing. No, but rather simply how we move, almost a biomechanical approach to fighting. And
Sure.
that the things that are effective, we've been beating the daylights out of each other as a species since we first crawled out of the ooze. So we've kind of figured it all out. It's just different ways of explaining it. It's different ways of applying those same principles and tactics to different weapons. One of the martial arts I teach is actually two, and they share this in conjunction, is the Medusa system and Western Piper methods. Western Piper methods is a offshoot of South African Piper, and Medusa is the only way I can really describe it is prison combatives.
Okay.
But they're very similar in a lot of ways how they approach the same question. How do you defend yourself? How do you protect yourself with limited technology in extremely close spaces, which is pretty applicable to the average civilian in most cases.
Sure.
But you see these incredible similarities on two different continents. But what's great about them is they're both easily applicable to something like a flashlight. It's something you can easily hold in your hand. It doesn't have to be a knife. And that just goes even further on to show that the things that work, no matter where they're coming from. And, it doesn't matter if you call this an angle 1 or you call it a number 5 strike, depending on what system. It's the exact same thing. The name
Sure.
and how effective it is depending on what's in your hand. But this motion is human. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So what attracts you to weapons specifically over empty hand?
We're tool users. Right?
Okay.
It's what it boils down to. And, learning how to, all right, I'm 55 years old. Pretty good shape for a 55-year-old man, but I've been doing this for a long time. You reach a certain point, and all those youthful attributes that we depended on, our strength, our speed, our agility,
Don't say that.
having knees that work,
I mean, I'm creeping up on that, so don't say it.
we get to a point where we diminish with age.
Sure.
So if you're really studying and practicing martial arts to defend yourself, not as a sport, not as a health pursuit, and all those things are valid, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if you're doing that, you absolutely have to look at weapons use of some variety. Whether it's a cane, whether it's a pocket knife, whether it's a pistol. And, pistol use is just as much a martial art as anything else. A lot of people kind of forget that. So, it's kind of where I'm coming from.
No, that's good. So that leads kind of into the next part of this conversation. So I've been having this conversation with a lot of people about how, as a martial artist, to be a successful martial artist, I say that we have to be equal parts sadistic and masochistic. You have to be able to take the pain, have to be able to give the pain. And so I've opened up the question of how do we, as martial artists, teach others to defend themselves when they are missing that component? The non-violent people, how do we teach those non-violent people how to
I don't
defend
think
themselves?
you can. I don't think you can without severe psychological damage.
Ooh.
All right. When it comes
you really just called us out for being psychologically damaged.
all right, we are in the modern society, the world we live in today.
Yeah.
We are having to deal with a violent situation, as much as we hear about it on the news, is really out of the pale of most people's experiences.
Sure.
Maybe somebody got mugged, because they were drunk one night, but the guy coming up and trying to kill you, trying to cause you grievous bodily harm, unless you're involved in very specific subcultures like, criminal gangs and that kind of thing, Joe Bob Accountant is not going to run into that. Joe Bob Accountant might have had a fist fight in school. That was it. Joe Bob never had to learn the hard, practical realities of fighting to survive.
Right.
And I pray that all my students never, ever, ever have to use anything that I teach them.
Absolutely.
I want them to go to their grave asking themselves, what if? That would be good, because that meant all the other lessons sunk in, not just the physical ones.
Absolutely.
But that being said, teaching somebody that is so opposed to violence and trying to teach them how to be violent is almost impossible unless you rewire their thinking, rewire their cultural understanding of how the world works. When we look at, use the military as an example, a big part of what basic training is not just learning the rules and regulations of the Army and how to march in pretty lines. It is coldly calculated to break a person down and then build them up into a machine that follows orders, looks down the barrel of a rifle, and pulls a trigger without thinking. That is the reality of what you're doing in basic training. And we take that and we advance it even further in, depending on what your job is, whether you're an infantryman or, a mortar guy, whatever your job specialty is, they further it through training to get you to where you're almost operating without thinking. You have stimulus, you have response, you do it. Worry about it all later. And this is part of the we see the repercussions of people that are getting out, that even though they might not have gone into combat, they still have a lot of trouble adjusting to a different way of life, and where the vast majority of people around them don't think the way they do. That's why things like, VA clubs and, the American Legion and all these things are so popular, is because it gets these people that have been programmed or, broken down, reprogrammed, and turned into something else. And they get to hang out with people that are of a similar mindset, with the same jokes, the same shared experiences, the same culture. And it's very hard to do that to somebody that's like, oh, I could never hurt somebody.
Right.
You have to have that willingness to begin with. And some people don't. I know a guy, he's a very close friend of mine, and I appreciate his honesty when, vets are around and everything. He's like, I could never do that. I'm not built that way. I understand exactly who I am. I could not do that. You will never take him and turn him into somebody that is comfortable with performing very violent acts on another human being.
Absolutely.
And he's 100% honest about it. And he's like, I'm glad there are guys like you guys that can do that. And that's fine. I really don't like when people tie their, lack of a better word, manhood to their ability to fight or their ability to be involved in some kind of combat thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Good. So how long have you taught?
Oh, goodness gracious. I started teaching back in the early, about 93, 94, somewhere around there.
Okay. You started teaching when I started taking martial arts.
Like I said, I just dove into Filipino martial arts at that time period and was lucky enough that there was a guy at a local school where I lived in Augusta, Georgia at the time. That was one of the things they called was Filipino martial arts. And it was this guy's, hybrid system. He had bounced around a bunch of systems, achieved mastery level in several of them. He just got sick of their organizations and moved on and eventually put together his own kind of thing. And in a lot of ways that influenced a lot of what I do these days myself. And that's kind of what the whole Calice Americano thing is about. It's not that I'm going to give somebody ranks or any of that. I rarely ever give out any kind of rank or instructorship. It's a process. It's a way of understanding fighting. It's a way of approaching your understanding of fighting. I hate to, Bruce Lee nut ride, but you've got to find your way, your path.
For sure.
His Jeet Kune Do is always going to be his Jeet Kune Do, and everybody else is doing Jeet Kune Do is doing their version, maybe, or they're just trying to copy Bruce. And that's sort of what I want. I want my students to find their path outside of certain systems, which are more like, again, Medusa and Piper, Western Piper methods. We don't want you to make it your own. This isn't about teaching you how to make these things, lifelong development. We just want to give you basic skills that you can easily go out there and apply and use in a very short period of time.
Define very short period of time. What do you think?
All right. Are you familiar with the OSE, OSS, World War One, World War Two, really World War Two? All right. So one of the guys that was involved in putting the Medusa system together, he basically used the idea of how they ran their training. And the hand-to-hand edged weapon stuff was a very, very small block compared to everything else they had to learn. It was just, all right, this afternoon from, 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we're doing hand-to-hand. And then the next day, you'd be, learning how to blow up a bridge or something like that.
Okay.
So his idea was that if everything could be compressed then for these guys into most likely, which would likely use best way to do it and all that sort of stuff, that's the way they built the Medusa curriculum. And ideally, you can go into a 4-hour seminar and come away with a complete understanding of what the system is, how to take it and improve upon it yourself as you practice and train without spending a lot of dedicated time in the classroom.
Where did he pull technique from?
Prison. Legitimately prison. He's
okay.
been, yeah. Michael Raymond, Seth Raymond, and the other guy whose name I won't go into because he's dealing with some stuff right now.
Okay.
But what they did was they interviewed prison guards, inmates, people that were doing life in prison. They went out and did the research.
Brilliant.
Hundreds of hours of watching closed circuit TV, getting advice from inmates in how they would approach it. And they took all of this from here and there and there, and they just kind of boiled it down into principles. The things that seem to show up in every single instance.
Okay.
And that's where we came up with the mantra of shock, latch, and stab, which is at the core.
Shock, latch, and stab.
Yes.
Okay.
It's at the core of the Medusa system. Shock. Do something hard and fast to the person that's attempting to hurt you. You know?
Okay.
Ideally, if you can get the jump on them and be preemptive, you're even better. Guy starts reaching into his pocket for a gun. Do something to distract him from that gun very quickly. So, you know, shock can be, and we do this a lot with people that are not martial artists when they come for us to train. We use a lot of the old World War II combatives just because they're simply gross motor movements. They're simple to understand. It doesn't take decades of training to learn to take your palm and smash somebody in the middle of the face with that. You know, I can have you on a heavy bag for 15 minutes and have you breaking jaws and cheekbones and, you know, you know, it's not a difficult thing. So for the untrained, we typically rely on a lot of that stuff. For the trained people, what we do is we give them the roadmap and say, what works well for you? What is your best first strike? You know, for a boxer, might be a jab. For an MMA guy, it might be a takedown. You know, it all depends because the actual individual techniques aren't that important. It's how to string them together and have that plan so that when you're in the middle of a fight, when you suddenly find yourself in that horrible place, you're not suffering from analysis paralysis where you're going, well, this is this, so I do an inside block, do I do an outside block, which foot am I stepping with? None of that. It's like you see something coming at you and you follow the first rule that every soldier learns when they're learning how to patrol. And if you get ambushed, you don't take up a defensive position. You don't try to hide behind your vehicles. As soon as the ambush pops off, you attack the ambush. And this is what we need to think about in self-defense situations. We, I like to put it, self-defense is a legal term, and self-defense is that first, oh crap moment, I'm being attacked. If you weather that and you want to continue surviving, you need to bring the attack to the opponent, to the person that's attacking you, because they're not expecting resistance. You know, they're not. But if you let them get the advantage, they're going to run over you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And when people are like, well, what about this? What about MMA? What about all of these guys doing, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And I love BJJ. The only reason I don't do it anymore is because I'm old and broken. But when, you know, it's a wonderful, great defensive thing and incredibly awesome for saving yourself from, you know, your drunk uncle at the party who starts acting out of hand.
Right.
But if somebody is coming up to you and is going to, you know, wants to take your life, they're either going to shoot you or stab you.
Right.
And when you grab on for that
or maybe
bar,
bash your head in.
Yeah. Go ahead. Put this in an arm bar.
Right.
You know, it's a different situation. So that's, you know, what these systems are for. It is for that person that wants to actually learn to navigate real violence, not hopefully learn enough physical attributes and techniques and ideas from something sportified to actually protect themselves in a real world violent encounter.
Absolutely. What's your favorite weapon?
My favorite weapon? Close air support.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. Close air support. You know.
Yeah.
Next to that, firearms. I spend so much time on edged weapons in the public view. I really don't do a lot of stuff with firearms publicly. Not because I'm hiding it. It's just that there are people that are, number one, a lot better than me that are better instructors when it comes to firearms. And I can show you some tricks. And I'm working on a project right now that will involve firearms to a small extent in a very limited scenario. But, you know, it takes a long time to learn to master the knife as a weapon. What it doesn't take a long time to learn to do is put the pointy end in the other guy in a smart and efficient manner. And those are two very big different things.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to your bob to keep it intact while you stab it?
I use a heck of a lot of fiberglass strapping tape.
Fiberglass strapping tape. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see it at, you go into a package store. It's the tape that has the fiberglass nylon cords in it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I use to keep them together. That's how I make them last.
Because I've seen you give him hell online, and I'm like, just how's his head not off?
Well, it mostly is. If I were to take off all the tape off of that structure, it is held on by probably, I think there's like maybe 4 inches of rubber still attached. But like he's from here all the way to back here. He's just opened, and it's believe it or not, it's not me practicing cuts. It's all stabs.
Really?
Yes. Everything.
Just threading the needle, right?
It's just over and over and over. And when you look at systems like Medusa and Piper, where we are really, we're not playing games at range with targets out here. We're not doing this kind of dually Filipino martial arts thing. We're not. We're here. This is where we're fighting. This man has gotten inside your bubble close enough that the only option you have is some kind of edged weapon. And when you're in here with somebody, you don't have time to mess around.
Right.
You are putting this into them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's here or armpit, whatever. You're just putting it in them over and over and over and over until the threat stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with my advanced students, I do talk about biomechanical cutting, where we're specifically targeting things like ligaments and muscles, but you are going to be better served in most cases of just going point driven and filling them full of holes. How many times have you seen on the internet guys with slashes all across their body, sitting at the table in the ER getting patched up?
Right.
What you don't see a lot of is guys looking like a spaghetti strainer being patched up. All of them are in the morgue.
Right.
Yeah,
no, well, that's the way that works on a biological level. Like we as animals or as creatures can handle cuts, but when you start poking, there's organs and arteries, and so 5 or 6 stabs, and they're definitely going to bleed out.
Mm-hmm. Or just go into shock. Even if they don't bleed out, they're probably going to go into medical shock. And you watch the stuff online, you see all these people get stabbed. Half of them don't even realize they've been stabbed. But in very short order, they're boom and fall over. It's, that blood loss and shock kick in real quick. And it's not like Fairbairn's table of death and all of that crud. Yeah, we all know that was disproved, and it was really a psychological thing for young soldiers to make them feel brave enough to enter into this situation with this person that was trying to kill them. Mm-hmm. But, the reality is that's not the case. So sometimes it takes time.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about the other art that you teach, that you mentioned.
Piper.
Piper from Africa.
Okay, Piper is a very unique thing in that, unlike American prison arts, which I hate to say art because there's really no art to it, it's systems. Right. It is based on 3 major martial arts that filtered their way through South African culture. Mm-hmm. The first is Nguni stick fighting, which is not stick fighting. It is an African spear or an African shield and a spear or a war club or an axe.
Okay.
It's called stick fighting now because you'll see it at a lot of like weddings. You'll see guys will have this. Yeah, it's a wedding thing. It's a cultural thing where the groom will take on all comers, and it's done in a fun kind of way. It's not. They're not really fighting, but they're showing bravado, and there's a whole big cultural significance there.
Okay.
And they do it from the time they're young. So it's part of the South African culture. The easiest way to picture this, and why I say South African or Nguni, the Nguni are all the tribes of South Africa.
Okay.
Most people will think of the Zulu
Okay.
as the Zulu are part of the Nguni peoples. So, but when you think of Zulus with the big shield and the spear, so that becomes the foundation of a lot of their movement.
Mm-hmm.
The other really interesting thing is that it is so poor there that a lot of them don't own shoes. Now, you won't think this is a big deal, but it really is. Because the difference of going through life barefooted versus going through life in a pair of Nikes is dramatic. And
sure.
Think in the West, all of our weight tends to be, kind of, it's why you can check a Westerner out walking through a room that he sort of plods. He's very...
Yeah.
The Africans, because a lot of them don't have shoes, they walk on the balls of their feet. They're
similar to Native Americans.
Right.
Yeah.
So their balance is very centered yet forward.
Mm-hmm.
And their movement is very different in that they fall.
Mm-hmm.
Their movement is constantly falling instead of stepping, moving behind it. If you picture like the two complete antitheses, opposites of movement, you think of the samurai with his very upright posture. His upper body almost doesn't move, but his lower body, it's like he's gliding across the floor. His shoulders aren't moving up and down. Very smooth, like he's on rails.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the African way of movement. These guys are literally falling forward with their weight to cover distance. And it creates some very interesting dynamics in what you're able to do. But aside from that, there's also Dutch Indonesian Silat, which comes into it. And in advanced levels, when we start showing some of the throws, if you've ever seen any Silat or at least familiar with it, you're like, oh, it's it.
Right.
The other one that a lot of people don't realize, but has a huge impact on it, is Western boxing, because it is so ubiquitous and it is one of the most effective, if not the most effective way of just punching somebody. Body movement and shifting. And we could talk for hours about the evolutionary development of Piper, but it ends up being this incredibly practical and effective system that is only point driven and only in reverse grip, because the knives they use, they're so poor that the knives they use are of such low quality that they might as well be disposable. And you can't rely on an edge for a cut. You're only going to stab with them. And then when you take the ideas of working with a shield and a spear, where you have a shield in one hand, here, you're holding it because it's got the central stick, and your spear here, you start looking at this, and then you see that the people practicing Piper are fighting here. And it's the exact same thing. It is that spear methodology, that shield methodology. Now, in Filipino martial arts, we would call your offhand your live hand. In Piper, we call it our shield hand, simply to re-emphasize that use of the shield and how those techniques and strategies apply to using a knife, a smaller knife.
Is the shield? Is there technique with the shield that is other than defensive? Is the shield used for attack?
Yes. And again, the easiest way to show this is I'll just give you like a little demonstration here.
Awesome.
So We don't typically. Let's look at Filipino martial arts, and I am not calling out anybody's specific system or anything like that. So please don't be offended if your particular system does things differently. Let's just call it generic FMA. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So generic FMA. Let's do something like Hubud. All right. We might come to the outside, get a cut, and then move in. Something real simple like that.
Sure.
The approach with something like the Piper is I'm not going to try to pass. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to take my shield hand and I'm literally going to crash down on it. I'm going to knock it down out of my way. And then your reaction to this hit is going to allow me to fall into the space that you've created. I may do things like there's a technique that's very signature in Piper, and that's the shimmer. I'll show you this real quick, just a second here. All right, this is a cold steel kudu. All right,
very cool. Okay.
This is made after the okapi, which is a very specific type of super cheap knife. In Africa, they'll call it a dollar knife. They'll literally call it a dollar because it costs $1 South African dollar for their version of this. If you look closely, and I'll show you this on camera, it has a ring here, and this is the lock. So that when you open it, that's how the blade locks. There's a ratchet, and to close it, you have to pull this ring, push the blade down.
Okay.
All right? They're dog dirts. They're horrible. Some of the worst knives on earth. But there's that ring. And on my little Spyderco trainer here, you'll notice I have a key ring as well. Well, the shimmer is this movement like this. So now you hear that ring rattle. And if a criminal were mugging somebody, they might simply walk. I'll give you a good example. We all know that if a guy, in New York City walks up to you, he lifts his shirt up and shows you a gun and holds his hand out, you know what time it is, right?
Right.
And so this is that same idea. You're coming around a corner, suddenly this guy walks out of the dark of the alleyway and you know what's up.
Right.
But it has a lot of other possible uses as well. I personally like it as a distraction. If you start paying attention to what I don't want you to pay attention to, I might start shaking this. And if I'm doing this in a very threatening manner, while you're looking at this knife, I might even come up and then hit you with the other hand. And you would do this. This is not like an invented technique. This is like sword and shield, spear and shield 101. I will smash you with the edge of my shield and then drive my spear into you. So
Absolutely.
All right. So it's this kind of ideas that we're getting from. You can clearly see the connection between the shield and spear use and the knife itself. So does that answer that a little bit better?
It answers it. I was asking mainly because, I don't talk to many people that have African art backgrounds, and so the difference in perspective is very cool and very needed.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the big questions we have in the West as we look at these techniques, and this is something that the people we study with, the people that study with me and the head instructors of the group want people to understand, is we're not teaching you this as a way to fight. We're not telling you that this is how you defend yourself. We want you to take the lessons you can learn from this methodology and apply them to what you do.
Sure.
And like distance is a huge thing, distance management. And this is really key in understanding why Piper is done the way it is. Here in the West, if we're talking, we're just going to be, even with our best friends, we're going to communicate here.
Right.
This could be my mother, and I'm still keeping a respectful distance.
Right.
That's not the case in Africa.
Really?
This is conversational distance. This.
Why is that culturally?
It's just their culture.
Huh.
So it is very normal for somebody to be...
And do they think that further apart is disrespectful?
They just think it's weird. Just exactly the reaction you had, that look on your face. Why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Let's be free.
Okay.
But you see similar things happen in other countries. In the United States, and I'm not making any judgment calls here, but you see two men walking down the street holding hands, it's going to strike you as unusual, and you're going to think certain things.
Sure.
You go to Saudi Arabia, and you'll see two men walking down the street hand in hand, and they are the best of friends. And there's nothing beyond that other than we're just good friends. There's no romantic implication of two men holding hands walking down the street. So it's just a very cultural. It's a cultural difference. So what we're dealing with here in the West is how do we take these techniques that evolved at this distance, extreme corto range for UFMA guys out there, and make it work in a culture where we're standing out here. How do we bridge that gap? How do we get to our working pocket where we want to be? And that's a lot of what the first couple of levels in Piper is about, is learning not only the mechanical methods we use to use a knife, generate power, what we target, what the general movement principles are when you get to the latter end of level 2 and you start moving into level 3. That's really where you start putting it all together and start learning how to truly fight with it as opposed to learning the movement style.
Sure. And I assume that there's like combinations of learning how to bait somebody to close the distance for you, and also like those empty steps or those like boxing steps. Go ahead.
Here's one of the things. I don't want to bait this guy to be closer. All right?
Okay.
And here's why. We're dealing with self-defense. We're not dealing with sport. In sport, I want to throw my jab, and maybe I'm going to start shortening that jab up so that you start coming in. Maybe I'm playing little games with my footwork so that I get you a little closer so I can hit you with that cross or that big, heavy Tyson-like hook,
Right.
Great within a sport context. But we're not dueling. We're dealing with somebody that has homicidal rage. We're dealing with somebody that is the active shooter in a school and your teacher armed with a heavy-duty marker, and that's all you've got.
Yeah.
So you need to aggressively close that distance. And how do you do that? How do you knock things out of the way? How do you not even worry about knocking things out of the way? How do you, much like Medusa, we're just going to strike at the face to give us that movement? Or maybe we're going to use one of the techniques which we call a flick, which is really Piper's longest range weapon. And it's reaching out. It's literally only attacking the face with that much of the knife. I just want the point to hit you in a bony area, maybe your eyeball. I just want that.
That's just the shock, yeah?
Yeah, I just want that momentary reaction so that I can follow in behind my movement, fall into that gap, and then fill you full of holes before you realize what's going on.
For those of you that don't follow Bryan, he does videos frequently where he stabs the shit out of his bob in the same capacity as what he's doing right now. So that tape is probably a solid investment.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something I firmly believe that if you are training in any form of edged combatants, you need to be used to stabbing something.
Absolutely.
Because it's fine to practice this in the air, but practicing disengaging it from a target, pulling it out of a target, is just as important as putting it into a target. And for those of you that are out there,
it's a difference in throwing a punch versus hitting a punching bag, like
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys follow, those of you out there that might follow Ed's manifesto of Ed Calderon, and he does his organic medium testing, and he hangs up a cow or a pig, and you get in there and you stab it with your knife, and you see how surprisingly little force it takes to go through meat. But you also learn things like what it's like to get stuck in bone and that kind of thing. But you need to, if you're serious about using edged weapons, you absolutely have to experience something like that on a semi-regular basis to really get your retraction in a way that makes sense and works. Because, you hear about this, knives being stuck in bone. We see the guys in the hospital with the knife stuck in their head,
right,
waiting for the doctor. And why is it still there? Because the other guy couldn't get it out, and he was able to keep fighting. So these are things you have to realistically consider when you're looking at edged weapons combatives of any variety. And the easiest way I have found to do that, instead of spending a bunch of money on a cow every other month, is I just put a bunch of holes in my bob. It's surprisingly close to stabbing live flesh. I'm practicing going through a rash guard, the vinyl sleeve that holds these arms on the bob, for those of you that are familiar with how the arms on the bob work,
right,
and into the bob itself. So it's a pretty good, substitute for actually doing damage, doing harm with a knife. And you also know that if your power's right, because I'm not using a live blade. This is completely dull.
Yeah.
So if my power, when I hit this thing, is not on point, it's going to bounce. I'm not getting the penetration I need. But if I do everything right, it's in bob.
Right. Oh, poor Bob. He's a good sport.
Yeah, and it's with a little bit of duct tape and a little bit of strapping tape, you can take your $400 investment and make it last a long time. If you're really smart, you go find one on Craigslist, because plenty of people buy them and then they sell them a year later for
use them for 6 or 8 months, and then
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. What do you think that the average martial arts practitioner neglects in their own personal study?
A realistic understanding of what they're doing. And this is something I harp on all the time. It is very easy for us to fall for the dogma and politics of our chosen martial art. The study of the martial art itself doesn't make you a better fighter than anybody else. Yes, using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA as an example, yes, the average MMA guy is going to beat the average drunk in a bar. Unless that average drunk at the bar comes up behind him and cracks him over the back of the head. Or meets him outside and shoots him in the gut.
Right.
These are the things that we have to really understand. Yes, sport martial art training is fantastic. It develops so many attributes: cardio, timing, power, the ability to read what an opponent is doing. Those are all things that sports martial arts do better than anything else.
Sure. Yep.
But that's only one small piece of the picture. And we can't get ourselves thinking that there is one answer to all questions. And this is why I encourage my students to cross-train. I am not the end-all, be-all master. There are plenty of people that know more than me. And there are plenty of people, more importantly, there are plenty of people that know more than me about very specific things. I'm a generalist. They are, specialists. So go study with them, learn from them. And I want my students to go away from me constantly wanting to grow and develop and learn more and more and more. I don't want my students to be like so many people I've run into in my life that go, oh yeah, I'm a black belt and such and such. I'm like, oh, really cool. Where do you train? Oh, well, I haven't trained since 19 blah, blah, blah.
Right,
I got my black belt. It's like, great, man. Love to talk to you about it. Martial arts are awesome. It's great fun. We get a lot from it. And then I move on,
right.
Because they stopped. And this kind of takes us full circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you did yesterday is not what you can do today. So you always have to focus on today. And why I spend so much time weapon focused is because if now at my point in life and my maturity, if I'm getting into a fight, so many things have gone wrong.
Right.
So many things. And ideally, if I do everything right, the only fights I will ever get into at this point in my life is with somebody that actually wants to kill me.
Absolutely.
And those are the skills that I need to focus on. So, it's all about what you want to focus on, what you are doing, and be honest with yourself about what you are doing.
Absolutely. I like that. And I will add that I had an instructor tell me that there's one technique that will win every bar fight, and that is not going to the bar.
Yeah. I don't, look, I've reached a point in my life where I don't go to bars.
Right.
Number one, I want to be in bed by 11 o'clock at the latest,
Right.
I'm not out there doing the young man's fun stuff. But I'm also mature enough that I realize that, guys that age, they're still young, dumb, and immortal. And they don't realize what is important. And because somebody spilled a drink on you is not a reason to get into a fight. That's the kind of stuff you can't mitigate. You can't predict that this person is going to do, start fighting because you accidentally bumped into them or they bumped into you. So it's just best to avoid it. And honestly, bars are expensive. I have house payments and car payments to make. I don't need to be spending that money on booze. If I want a good drink, I'll go to the liquor store. I'll buy myself a bottle, and I'll sit home and not be annoyed. Maybe have a couple friends over for drinks.
No, I like that. What is one thing, if you could give to every martial arts practitioner, you would give them? Technique, philosophy, concept?
Question everything. Don't assume that because your master tells you something, and I even hate that term master, because your coach tells you something, that it is the gospel truth. Understand it's something that in their experience may work, and you should absolutely give it that credence. But the question is always, will it work for me? And I keep picking on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and please don't take it that I'm slamming it, because I actually love BJJ, but I love it in context.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. At my strongest, I was still the same height, but I was 240 pounds and I was deadlifting 650 pounds. All right. Back at that time,
that's a wall of a man. Ooh.
At that time, I was fighting in full armor. I was fighting in a full suit of armor, doing historical European martial arts. I fought in Battle of Nations. I was on the 2000, when was that? I'm looking at the poster. 2013. I was on the 2013 U.S. team, representing the United States at that. It was incredible. It was awesome. But when you take a guy like that, or a guy who just got out of prison and all he ever did was lift weights and eat, your 120-pound jiu-jitsu person, not even man or girl, is not going to be able to do anything with him, because I can literally pick you up and throw you into a wall.
Right.
I can use you to beat your friend. This is the kind of things you need to consider. So, yeah, it's great. Go train BJJ. Go fight in your weight classes. Learn really cool lessons on leverage and discipline and understand that. But don't believe it makes you an effective fighter outside of the circumstances that it does.
Right.
Sure, it can help you, but it's not going to be the answer because most predators look for the weakest.
Mm-hmm.
And, even though I'm 55 years old, I walk tall, I carry myself, I'm heavily tattooed. I'm not somebody that looks like a victim.
Right.
And, if you look like a victim, you're going to attract those sorts.
Well, and as a martial artist, us carrying ourselves with confidence, standing upright, and we walk in a way that the guy that's mugging somebody, he's probably not going to pick us.
No, he's not.
And those guys that are just there to mug, or even somebody that's trying to physically bully somebody, they've already sized their people up in a way that they're like, no, oh wait, there's one, head down, looking at their phone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're not paying attention, and next thing you know.
Yeah, and they're the ones. But the people that are trying to kill are a different breed, and they're not looking at that. So
No, they're not. They are picking targets. They are, and even they're looking for somebody that's going to be an easy victim. Well, the person, unless they're a professional and their job is to terminate somebody.
Sure, right.
That's
if you have a hit out on you, you're in a different class.
Yeah, you're in a totally different world.
Right.
But if you're just somebody that, maybe catches somebody's eye, like Kitty Genovese when she got, killed. Public figure like Jodie Foster. Remember she went dark for a long, long time because somebody was trying to kill her. There's people get attached to people and for all sorts of various reasons, and they target them as victims. And mind you, while I'm saying all of this, don't live your life in fear.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's good to be prepared. If you spend your whole life going, being freaked out that you're going to be attacked, you're eventually going to be hiding in a closet, living off clothing because
or you're going to get attacked.
Yeah.
Because that's part of victim mentality. That's part of the victim aspect is mousy.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, but really be realistic about what you're doing. Question everything and train.
Right. You're only as good as the amount of time you put into whatever. That can be anything.
And not only that, you're only as good as you are at the moment because you might be a world-class athlete and then tomorrow you're in a car accident and your hip gets smashed. And even after you heal up, you're never going to be what you were before. And time catches up with us all.
Absolutely. You shouldn't say that again.
Hey, man, it's all about being realistic.
I'm 42, and I am aging well because of the martial arts, because I'm taking care of myself. And I'm hoping to, I'm not unrealistically beat aging, but realistically stave it off.
Well, here's a little interesting thing. All right.
Yeah.
6 months ago, I had a stroke.
Oh, okay.
I had an actual stroke in the hospital.
Congratulations for making it.
Right. Blew out, some blood vessels in the front of my brain. A lot of that actually had to do with, as a strange way, number one, I was a type 2 diabetic and didn't know it.
Okay.
I figured I was getting to be the age that I was just starting to slow down, and I was tired. I was sleeping more. I had to drink a bit more coffee, this kind of thing. I had no idea that what I was doing was actually regulating things. And I was down in Florida teaching a seminar, and seminar went great. I was coming home Sunday evening. I was driving along in my car. I was about 2 hours away from home, and all of a sudden I felt kind of funny. I was like, wow, this is weird. And then felt like half a second. And luckily I was on a back road, so there was no real traffic around. And all of a sudden I like the world just kind of went narrowed in on me. And that tunnel vision, like when you're getting choked out. I was like, whoa, did I just fall asleep? I drove home. But things progressively got worse over the next couple of days. And eventually I called somebody, got taken to the hospital, and I spent basically 3 days asleep because my body was that much of a mess. The upside of this is I firmly believe that staying in shape, all the martial arts that I've been doing, constantly moving throughout my life, is what kept me from that being a life-altering, maybe even possibly dead incident to a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So, be healthy. And, it's funny the number of martial arts guys that I meet that I'm like, how old are you? Oh, yeah, I'm 63. And you're looking at somebody and you're like, this guy's like in his mid-40s at the most, you familiar with Mark Makita? You know who he is? Yep. Look at how that man looks. Mm-hmm. Think about how old he actually is. You know? Martial arts.
That's a hope.
Yeah.
Use it as a fountain of youth.
Yes, absolutely.
So I like to keep these at about an hour. I got two last things. One is, what advice would you give to anybody that is thinking about starting but hasn't started yet?
Depends on how old they are and what their goals are.
Very fair. That is very fair.
If you are, and the most common thing I get is people come to me like, will you teach my kids? And I'm like, no. Go take them to a jiu-jitsu school. Go get your kids that kind of training. Right. That is perfect for somebody their age. Mm-hmm. When your kid's 16, 17 years old, with your permission, then come talk to me. Mm-hmm. And then we can talk about the stuff I train. Mm-hmm. But again, what are your goals? What are your goals? Is your goal flexibility and keeping your joints moving? Go do Tai Chi. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Is your goal to defend yourself after you're an adult? Take some kind of martial arts class and get some firearm training. Mm-hmm. Seriously, there's a reason we carry guns instead of knives. They're more effective. Right. The use of a knife is a last resort. It's because you couldn't get to your gun. Now, that being said, this is an analog for all sorts of things. This could be a flashlight. It could be a pen. It could be, a Kubotan on a key ring. It could be a literal stick off the ground.
Yeah. Butter knife at a... Yeah.
So, but it's variable, man. What can you do? How much do you weigh? What do you, what sort of shape are you in? I'm not going to say go do one thing unless you're a child. If you're a child, go do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Absolutely.
Okay.
If you're an adult, we got to talk.
Right. And so then the last question I ask is, was there anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get to say?
Oh, no. I mean, if you want to, for those of you out there that found this entertaining, you can find me on YouTube as Kalis Americano. That's Kalis Americano. On Facebook, you can find me as just Bryan Cannata. And on Instagram, you can find me as Southern Kalis. So
I'll make sure I put the links in the show notes for the podcast so people can click.
If anybody out there, you see this, you're interested, you want to ask me questions, contact me. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff.
Awesome. Do you teach physically, like in a school, or do you teach Zoom?
2 nights a week. 2 nights a week. Okay. I have a all ages class that I teach, which is just basic Filipino stick work.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Wednesday nights class are my deadly
Pokey
forms classes.
classes.
The way I like to describe it is, there are two basic forms of Filipino martial arts. There's entablada, which is on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's the martial arty side of FMA. And then there's patayan, which is to turn off.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
And, two sides. Same art.
Yeah.
And Wednesday nights are patayan.
Good balance. I love that. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me. It means a lot to me.
It was a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed it.
As I always say as well, because you took that time to have that conversation with me, I thank you for being a part of my martial arts journey, because it means so much to me. That you have now added to 32 years of martial arts experience just by having a conversation with me. And I appreciate that. I also want to thank everybody that listened, and everybody keep kicking. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Apologies for it being so extremely intense, both in its context and in the opening. This podcast has become an outlet, and I am using it as such in any capacity. Today just happened to be that capacity. I love you all. Thank you for listening. If you all are seeing this and you're reaching the breaking point, if you are at the end of the rope, I'm an email away. I respond fairly quickly. Keep kicking pod@gmail.com. I'll email you back. I'll give you my phone number. We can have a conversation. And I don't mean this type of a conversation for other people to see. I will talk to you about whatever. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. I hope that you all enjoy this community that I'm building and the things that I am trying to accomplish here. Keep kicking, guys. Keep kicking.